Um, so, good morning to us here in the UK, but good evening to others who are listening in from other parts of the world. And Lucy Spencer, already on her quest to do 24 hours of tutoring, has, by British summertime, has done 9 hours already. So she's been morning, evening, afternoon, and everywhere in between. But this is the first gratitude circle that I've ever been to. This is the first gratitude circle of today, of World Tutors Day at the Love Tutoring Festival. And we are delighted to be kicking this off. This event is going to be chaired by Linda Larby, who joined us last night for the Being an NTP Tutor and who has been helping out so magnificently throughout this week. So we have a lot of gratitude for Linda for helping out this week, and the panelists that Linda has brought together have a lot of gratitude for the educators and tutors that have helped them in their lives. So I'm going to pass over to Linda, who is a wonderful listener and the leader of tutors. And she has some panelists that she's brought together this morning. Linda.
Hi everyone, thank you Ludo and Julian, Qualified Tutor, for having me on the first gratitude circle of the day. I'm so honoured, and the fact that it's also the first World Tutors Day. I'm really honoured to be speaking and to be introducing some fabulous tutors to you. On our panel today, we've got Jack Simmons and Melanie Ware, and we'll also have Anna joining us a little bit later as well. The whole format of this is really, we're going to be finding out a bit about Jack and Melanie and Anna's experience as a tutor, but also their experience having had tutors. And it's this idea of just being really showing gratitude for all the experiences that they've had with their tutors and finding out what it was that made their tutors so special. So I'm gonna briefly get Jack and Melanie to just introduce yourselves, what you tutor in, and maybe just a little bit about yourselves as well. Jack, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Thank you, Linda, so much. I would love to. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jack, and a lot of you have seen me throughout the week already. In fact, all of you have. But I work for all sorts of different people. I'm a singing teacher. I work for Qualified Tutor as their facilitator, and I work for Nudge Education as an education expert. So I come at tutoring from a few different angles. As a private singing teacher, I do exactly what you'd expect, working one-to-one with students, a jack of all trades indeed. I work with students who now are working towards their kind of higher grades, so key stage 3-4 students doing kind of grade 5 to 8 in singing. And with Nudge, I have been with them now for the whole academic year, and I work with students who are chronically disengaged, so students who can't go to school for whatever reason. That could be a mental health need or anything, for any reason, but they've been disengaged from meaningful education for around a year by the time I meet them, and I spend time getting to know them and working with them on anything. Basically, it could be cooking, it could be boxing, it could be English, you know. So yeah, that's my jam.
Hello, my name's Melanie. I'm very happy to be part of the QT community. Quite a new member. Basically, I've been tutoring since about 1999. Don't work out the age. And I tutored initially adults, and I tutored childcare because that is my specialism. And basically, I work with adult learners just doing their vocational qualification. I also worked with 16 to 18-year-olds, which is slightly different, but it's the same thing, the apprenticeships. And now I work for tuition as a volunteer, and I think that is part of the MTP, voluntary, working with children that are struggling a little bit. Obviously, COVID, the whole situation, it's been really amazing to actually be able to support their learning. And it's been wonderful. I do English and I do maths. I am probably the strongest at English, but I think I enjoy teaching maths the most. I've had experience of working with children that have challenges in behaviour. Confidence is a big one. But basically, I just love to learn, and I love to transfer knowledge, and I love to grow with people, adults and children alike, and learn with them. So that's who I am.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, guys. And in all of that, I sort of forgot to introduce myself. I'm Linda Larby, as Luda said, and I work for Manning's Tutors. I have been a member of the QT community, I think, since January, since I did my level 2, working on my level 3 now, CPD course with Julia and the rest of the guys at QT. So hopefully that'll be done by July. And oh well, we're in July now. But it will be done soon, I promise. I tutor in geography, the sciences and English as well, so all through NTP. I started that in January as well, after completing my master's in child development at UCL. It's been a great experience so far. There's definitely, you know, there's so much going on with the NTP scheme, so I'm just really glad that I've been able to take part in it and really, you know, help these children that do need the extra support. So that's me. I will crack on with the next questions, and then hopefully we'll have Anna join a little bit later. Okay, so the first question is to both of you: if there was one thing you could say or go back and say to your tutors, what would it be? I have to say, we've sort of opened this up to not just tutors, but people like personal tutors. So what I realized in my research finding people for this is that not a lot of sort of our generation and previous generations had tutors themselves when they were growing up. So we've opened this up to not just tutors, but also people that have acted like personal tutors as well. So what is one thing you would go back and say to your tutors, and what would that be? Melanie, could I start with you?
Hello. This is a little bit of a, I'm answering your question, but it's going to be a little bit of a twist. There's two things that I would like to say to two people. And initially, my first experience is just picture me. I am about 14 years old. I'm in a corridor with many other students looking through a window at a classroom situation. Science is being taught, but I'm in the hallway, the landing thing, with all the rest of the children. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children sitting in front of one teacher, and he's teaching them science. And basically that was my school science for some strange reason. I don't know if it was political. It was in the 70s. There was a lot of different cultures, things happening, like Windrush. Anyway, me and quite a few other children. I'm not going to go into it, but there was a particular set of children with the same background as the teacher, but everybody different was out. And that was sad. I would like to say to him, please, let different people, let us all into the classroom, because you know what? I actually sadly got a U in science. It's because of lack of engagement, and that's sad. However, I will say to an adult science tutor, when I was literally maybe 5 years ago, I wanted to do my teacher training. So I wanted to learn science. I had to have science for my teacher training. And I only had about 3 or 4 lessons for this one tutor, but he was literally about 20 years younger than me. He actually gave me confidence to say that, you know what, you are not so bad at science as you think. And he kind of explained things and gave me so much confidence. So when I actually passed science last year, so there's two different, you know, the flip of the coin, you know, a tutor that wasn't that great and a tutor that actually gave me that confidence that actually come from you to a high five. So yeah, I'm happy.
Amazing, amazing to hear, Melanie. And I'm so glad that turned around for you, and that person, that other tutor gave you the chance to really excel in your science. That's so great to hear. Jack, same question to you. What would you tell your tutor?
Well, the tutor who I've been thinking about a lot, actually, I think about her very, very often. She was my singing teacher from when I was a kind of late teenager to all the way before I went to university. And I just owe her so much. So I would just say thank you for holding that space for me. You know, it can be a really vulnerable thing when you're teaching singing compared to other instruments, because you are your instrument. You know, it's not like a violin that's external to you or whatever. It's a part of you. So when you're working with a singing teacher, you have to really trust them, because the feedback that they're giving you can feel personal, especially when your voice is breaking and all of those things are happening as well, and you're kind of a little bit out of control. That she gave me so much care and time and attention, and our lessons weren't just about singing, they were about, you know, where the music was in the context and how I was feeling that day, and how that informed my performance, and how I was feeling affected my voice, and all of those things. So yeah, just the biggest thank you to her, really. She's wonderful.
Brilliant. That's so great to hear, Jack. Like both of you, I have had quite a number actually of really great tutors in my life, I would say. Not necessarily tutors like we are, but you know, definitely people that have fed into how I am as a tutor now. Funny story actually, before we go on to the next question, I actually had a tutor at one point. So I think when I was 11, doing the 11 plus, it was at a time where my parents could afford tutoring for me, but they had just got to that point. So my brothers hadn't been through tutoring or anything like that. But I have to say, and it's amazing that we're talking about, you know, all these great experiences, but like with Melanie, that was not a good experience. And I don't know if that was because of being from a certain culture, or you know, other issues that were going on at the time. But I walked away from that tuition session thinking, do you know what? I don't think I'd ever become this tutor, because it just wasn't a career that I saw myself going in because of what was actually going on in the tutoring session. So just a bit of background, you know, there's several children that were walking away in tears after the end of the tuition session, just because we were made to feel as though we weren't up to speed, or we weren't, you know, good enough to take the 11 plus to get into all these private schools and everything. So but I have to say, experiences like that kind of do shape you in a good way, because I knew that whatever I ended up doing, and I didn't know I was going to become a tutor at all back then, but I knew that I wouldn't want to be like that. I wouldn't want to make children feel as though they weren't good enough and they're not going to progress. So I definitely feel even negative experiences that you might have had with tutors still feed into the tutor you are today. So thinking about your tutors, what qualities did they have in, you know, their experiences with you? Is there anything that you thought that they had instilled in you to make you the tutor that you are today? Jack, I'm going to start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, of course it is. There are a lot of things I think I could talk about, but I think I'm going to talk about her vulnerability. She's a Scandinavian woman who has been in the UK for a really long time and has the most beautiful voice. Excuse me. She doesn't perform. She doesn't like it. She doesn't enjoy it. You know, she's terrified of performing. and the only kind of singing that she would do would be with her students in the classroom. But she was so honest about that, and she was so honest about the fact that, you know, what she loved was working with students' voices and helping them find their voice, both, you know, musically and, you know, personally. And I'm that is wonderful, and I think that's something that I've really held on to, both in singing teaching but out of singing as well. You know, the idea that it's for the student and it's about the student. You know, it's about finding their voice. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I've got a thing about voice. I love it. A little bit about the background, just to get to the story. I grew up in a West Indian household, wonderful. Just a little bit about the Windrush and the whole of the attitude of certain parents were very much, you need to do your studies if you want to be somebody or do well in the UK. I was born in the UK, by the way. My parents are both Jamaican. My daddy had a very harsh way of actually trying to teach maths, and he was just the way he was, very snappy, very trying to give you the worst times table and say like 9/7. I'm like, oh. So basically, I just literally shut down. When we talked with Judy Bryce, it really grabbed me, because that whole anxiety was really, really me. I was literally, can't do it, flapping about and all sorts. And I didn't pass my maths in school. I got a CSE, quite a very low grade. CSE was really literally needed like the U. Then I tried again and I got an F. Tried again when I was an adult, because again, to teach early years, you needed to have your maths and English, and I was really struggling. So what happened, I went to tutoring with an adult again, and I was maybe 39 that time. My tutor, what she had was a love for the subject, and that actually made me want to run to my class. And maths wasn't so scary, because if she loves it so much, it can't be that scary. She would literally let everybody work at the same pace. She'd give people that weren't kind of grasping it, or had grasped it, a little bit extra. And she made us all stay where we were. All the nervous people, everyone was really scared because we couldn't get our childcare, we couldn't get our anywhere. And just the way she was when she taught, she was just happy. She was just a lovely woman, and she just really, she thought we could do it, and we actually did. So I got my C when I was 40, and it was, I know for a fact that that tutor, she kind of made me realize that I can do this, and she really builds you up. And I really want to say thank you for her as well. I think amazing. She just has a love for the subject, and I love maths now. So yeah.
Amazing. It's so good to hear from both of you. I'm so glad as well, Melanie, that you had that tutor to help you. And it just goes to show learning is lifelong. You can't, you know, a GCSE at 40 is, you know, just as, you know, important and just as impressive as a GCSE at 16. And I think it's great to see that, you know, you can learn at any age and you can have a tutor at any age. And I feel that that is definitely something that is worth talking about on World Tutors Day. For me, I think, like I said before, didn't have the greatest experience with my tutor when I was 11, but I have to say teachers that I had during secondary school were more as personal tutors. And just for context, I spent year 10 to year 13 in a boarding school in Kent. So I was out of my depth. I'm from Birmingham, and Kent is very different. So I was really struggling, just settling in, but also getting into sort of doing my GCSEs and my A levels. Kent isn't that far away from Birmingham, but I was definitely homesick. I didn't have friends around me that I was used to having. But I have to say, in boarding schools, you have like a housemaster, and that's like your house dad in a way. And he absolutely fed into, you know, what I was doing, and he was just so interested in what I wanted to become. And even then, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up or anything like that. but I had two teachers, so Mr. Watson and Mr. Lee, both my psychology teachers, who really fed into what I was doing at school, but it was the kind of feeding in where you could tell that they really cared, and they cared about every aspect of my life leading on. And I think even to this day, I still see them as my tutors, still see them as my mentors in life because of the way that they had inspired me. So when I was choosing my GCSEs, I actually chose GCSE physics. No, sorry, when I was choosing my A levels, because you can choose those, GCSEs you can't. But I picked GCSE A level physics, A level geography, biology, chemistry, because I had this dream in my head that I wanted to become a doctor. And those are the things that you had to take if you wanted to progress on. But what I have to say, A-level physics, I didn't want to take, but I was asked to take by my dad because I got an A star at GCSE, which was a complete fluke. I think what I did was revise and memorize the revision guide. So I knew what was coming up and how to answer questions, but I didn't enjoy what I was doing. And it was Mr. Watson and Mr. Lee that really, took me on board, because I did do A-level physics for like 6 weeks, and it was like the worst 6 weeks of my life. That isn't even, an understatement. I was upset every single day. And they took me aside and they said, we can tell that you're not enjoying this. You could start late, but you could start psychology, and I can give you extra classes after school to catch you up with everyone else. And to this day, I wouldn't be where I am today without those two teachers, because I went on to do psychology as an undergraduate, and then built up of that on my master's as well. So I am so thankful for them. They really have fed into, my life in general. And of course, back then when I was about 17, 18, trying to figure out life as well. So
can I,
yeah.
sorry, at the risk of hijacking your format, can I just reflect something back at you from what you just said, which I think is wonderful and kind of has come out in all our stories, that those tutors who saw you as a complete human being, that's why I remember Ellen, and that seems to be why you remember your tutors, is that they saw all of you outside of whatever subject area they were in, outside of whatever context they saw you in. They saw you as a complete and complex individual, and they responded to your needs. And I think a tutor is someone who can be flexible. That's something that's come up a lot throughout the week, and that flexibility to be able to hold you in whatever shape you are, rather than try and force you into the kind of narrow constraints of a subject, has just seemed to be running through your whole story. And I just wanted to kind of point to that a bit more.
Exactly, I completely agree. It's seeing tutees as more than just what they are, and seeing them as individuals as well, and wanting to help on their personal journey, I definitely think is great qualities to have as a tutor. So this is going to feed into this question. What did you take away from your tutor, and what did they inspire you to do as a tutor now? So is there any practices and lessons that you've taken away from them? Are there any qualities that you can see in yourself now as a tutor? Jack, would you like to take the lead on this one first?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about finding your voice earlier, and I think it is still along that theme of seeing them as a complete individual, but also just listening. Listening is something that she did all the time to my voice, but also to my problems, to my worries about my voice and my life. And I think when we plan lessons and things like that sometimes, and you get into the routine and the rhythm of it all, it can be very easy to let those little moments slip away, because there are goals to meet and expectations to meet, and people, you know, who are invested in you as a tutor who aren't the child. And I think it's really worth remembering that, you know, like listening to them is not a waste of time ever. You know, asking them how their day was is not a waste of time ever, if you mean it, you know. And I think that listening is something that has been really, you know, a key part of me. You know, the kinds of jobs that I do now, I have to be really reactive to the situation, because it could be dangerous, because they're, you know, because for the child, or for the people around them. And I think, you know, listening to what the stakeholders need and taking that into account is important, but it never comes above listening to the child. And I think sometimes we have to advocate for that, which is something I'm learning to do better.
Absolutely. Melanie, same question to you, please.
Okay, I think the one thing that my tutors have done for me and helped me and supported me in is that flexibility. I have had situations even recently when life has been really tough, and we're tutoring and we're supporting people. And people are individual, they're unique, they've got things happening. I was in a situation just recently, and I was tutoring on a 1 to 3 in a school. And one of the little lads, he was about year 5, he was not having a good time. He was literally trying to sabotage a lesson, which was fair enough. He was clearly really stressed. And because people have been flexible with me, it kind of given me the heart to be flexible. People are people. I'm very much a people's person, and the people that tutored me saw me as very chatty. Melanie, listen more, and you know, and this is who I am. And everybody is unique and individual. And this guy, this young boy, I left him to do what he had to do. Obviously, we could still do what we had to do. The other children did not suffer for it. But then I took him aside and had a little word, and he was having a horrible day. His teacher had kicked him out. He's worried about his parents, and he had the world and everything on his shoulders. So we had a little chat, and then we started to kind of get going. And just how he knew, he spoke to me. And since then, after that, he got through. We was doing prose, we was doing the Highwayman, I think it was a poem, and he contributed. And when he left that class, he had a smile on his face. I hope he got on all right with his parents, but it's the fact that time and time again, life happens. Adults, someone's run off with the money, relationship breakdowns, bereavement, which is, I'm very aware of bereavement, you're just not having a good day. And I think to people, the tutors, to be so human, it gives you that understanding to be flexible and be human, because nobody's the same. I might be different tomorrow than what I am today. So it's to have that flexibility and to be very accepting. And when people have that trust and relationship with you, they actually really will learn. And I trusted my maths teacher and my biology teacher, and I got somewhere, because if you can't trust, it's very, very difficult to learn. So that's what I've found throughout my life. I'd like to get to know people as who they are, like what Jack said, and like we say, who they are. You know, people are very unique and very precious, everyone. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I know we talk a lot about trust and flexibility in the QT training. Little plug for the QT training there. Definitely, these are, you know, qualities and practices that we need to have as tutors. And I definitely agree with like the trust part and building a relationship. I'm very much of the view of, you know, these kids know us from nowhere. We don't know them, they don't know us. And it's about building that relationship first, because I think once you've built that relationship, as the both of you had with your own tutors, then you can, you know, build up from there and start, you know, actually passing on this knowledge and this education. They know that, you know, if they get something wrong, you're not gonna, you know, shout at them, you're not gonna make them feel like they're not good enough. And I think that is a really powerful skill and quality in tutors that we have today, and, you know, future tutors as well. I definitely think that as tutors, we feed in to our own students. And like you said, Melanie, sometimes our TTs have a bad day. Sometimes we have a bad day. And we can't let that, you know, get in the way of building that relationship and get in the way of actually educating as well. I think it's so important to see these tutees and the students that we're tutoring as individuals, as people that go through people things, you know. Not every day is going to be perfect, and not every time and not every session is going to be, you know, really, really productive and you get through your list of things. I think flexibility definitely comes in. I know of my tutees, sorry, that sometimes I've had to actually stop the lesson and say, you know, go and get yourself some water, take a little 2-minute break. We'll start this, you know, in a few minutes. Or I've had tutees and students, I've had them join, and you can just tell already, and sometimes through Bamble, we discussed this yesterday, I can't always see my the people that I'm teaching because of the platform, and you can't be on video and move the PowerPoint at the same time. But just through their voices, you can sort of tell after a while when something is wrong, when you know, something's happened that day. And I think it's just using those senses and using that to really, you know, get to the bottom of what is happening. And sometimes they won't tell you, but I find as the relationship has built and the trust is built, they're much more willing to share, you know. And sometimes it's things that have gone on in the school day that they might just need someone to listen for 5 minutes and to get them off their chest, and then they're ready to learn, then they're a bit more willing to engage. So I'm really glad you both shared that. Right, so the next question for you guys is, putting aside financial matters for the moment, why should someone have a tutor? So we're not thinking about, you know, the expense of a tutor, but why should someone bother with having a tutor in the first place? Melanie, would you like to start first?
I think someone should have a tutor is because they get the focus of somebody in their life, somebody that is going to listen, somebody that is dependable, and somebody that's going to build them up. You know, it's so much things in this world that tear things down, that tear people down. But vocally, obviously in face-to-face, obviously online, we're building them up. We're trying to help them to achieve what they want to achieve. And sometimes, unfortunately, like I think we were speaking earlier, it's not always, you know, my little ones, sometimes it's like, they'd probably rather be going out there doing something else. A little illustration I have to give you. I was doing some tutoring for EM tuition, which is lovely, as a volunteer. And we was trying to just do this thing. And this little girl, she was clearly didn't want to be there. She was very young. And she was just not wanting to be there. The parent was there, which was sitting with her. And I thought, okay. She was desperate to go. I said, okay, go and do what you need to do. She came flouncing back in her fairy outfit. She was really like animated. And I just laughed. And you know what? We got a little bit of teaching done and learning done, but you can't contain her. Sometimes you've got to know this is not happening, you know? So basically, hopefully not every session, but it's to have that understanding that I'm there for her, supporting her, and I'm growing and having that journey with them. So I think a tutor is going to be somebody that's going with you on that journey in a very positive way. So yeah, I think so.
Wonderful, thank you for sharing that. And Jack, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo everything that Melanie said. I think it's really difficult to ignore the financial aspect of having a tutor, because that is definitely a barrier to access for a huge number of people who actually need one, or would. I mean, everyone would benefit from one, but you know, there are huge gains that you can make with a tutor in a much shorter space of time, both academically and, you know, emotionally, in terms of self-esteem, when a caring professional invests in you and believes in you and creates an environment where you do things that are challenging and you achieve them, you know, and you build that trust over time, that, you know, who isn't going to benefit from having access to that? But you know, it's definitely going to benefit the people with the most challenge, the most difficult you know, feelings about themselves and all of those things. So yeah, everyone should have access to a tutor, and I think that NTP is going in a step to sort of supporting that, but there's definitely more need out there than is being met currently.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more, Jack and Melanie. I think, you know, having a tutor there, having someone that cares, and, you know, the thing is with NTP and a lot of tutoring that's going on at the moment, it is very much, and we had a conversation on this in the podcast last night, it's very much on a small scale. So you get to know these children, the children get to know you at such a like micro level, and it's really nice because if you think about teaching in general, you have 30 kids to, you know, get to know, and definitely teachers already have their day, but it's a lot harder for them, I think, to get to know each child individually, tailor lessons to each child, but with tuition, that is definitely something that is much more available to do, given the class sizes and given the fact that you can build a relationship with this child. When thinking about NTP for the next 15 weeks, you and that child have that connection and you can build that relationship. And I think the education that comes from that is a much richer, much more in-depth, much more tailored experience for both the tutor and the student as well. So just to close on this and just to sort of round this off, I'm first going to ask Jack and Melanie, I think, if they could pick just one characteristic of their tutors that they've had so far. So in QT, we talk a lot about persistence and punctuality and preparedness, the 7 Ps basically. If you could just pick one characteristic that your tutor has had and how they went about showing that characteristic. I know we've touched on this briefly, but if we can just pick one thing that made your tutor, you know, the best tutor and that was possible, what would that one characteristic be? Jack, go.
Yeah, okay. For me, it's persistence. You know, being persistently available, being persistent with me even when I didn't practice, being persistent with me even when I was finding it difficult. You know, creating an environment where I believed that, you know, I could, and it took a lot of time sometimes for me to believe that. So yeah, persistence, I think, just being there relentlessly, showing up for me, and, you know, every week.
Okay, I will say thank you for that. Yeah. I would definitely say positivity, because I was in regards to my maths and my science, I was so negative. I can't do it, I'm rubbish at it, I would say it like to my family. I was like, I got a U, and it was like my little badge, and it was that kind of that thing. So you know what, I did it. So yeah.
Amazing. I think for me as well, Melanie, it would be positivity. I think the tutors that I've had in my life have definitely added a positive thing, a positive spin to things. And going back to my story about having to drop A-level physics, didn't want to do it anyway, and then having to pick up psychology really late on in the year, I wouldn't have been able to do that if the tutors weren't positive, if they weren't, you know, picking me up when I felt like I couldn't do something, if I felt like I wasn't good enough, or I had loads to catch up on in order to speed up and, you know, get to the same level that the other students had got to. So I definitely think positivity, but as well as I think all of the 7Ps, so persistence, punctuality, preparedness, politeness, presentability, patience, and positivity, definitely all feed in, but a lot like Melanie, I think the positivity one for me really shone through in those tutors that I had. I'm actually going to open the floor up at the moment. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'd really like to hear from any of the people listening about any experiences that you've had with like tutors that you've had, or even like we were talking about personal tutors, people that have really fed into your education and your life in general. If anyone is willing to share on that, anyone that's a guest on here, I'd really like to hear from you and give you a chance to share your story as well.
I think, hi, if I may share a story that's just come back to me, having heard you speak about positivity. I haven't thought about this in ages. When I was at primary school, I had a clarinet tutor that would come in once a week, and there was a group of us, and we'd go into this fabulous space that wasn't even used that much in the school. And he was just so loved his music, so light-hearted and fun, that he'd have us kind of marching around after him, playing our clarinets. And I just remember that feeling of the delight in the music and the group ethic, and the fact that he delighted in us as these new little learners. Goodness knows what it sounded like to him, but we never let on, you know. It was, and I can't picture his face, but it's that old adage, I can still remember how he made me feel. And the joy of that, and that joy of music has stayed with me forever, and that was part of it. So I think that kind of that delight that tutors bring can really stay with you.
That's amazing to hear, Rachel. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, even though that may have been, you know, when you were a child and when you were growing up, those experiences stay with you and they influence sort of how you might tutor other
Definitely.
students as well. So that's amazing to hear. And I love, you know, hearing about the music, because I don't hear a lot about music in general. I mean, you know, music teachers, music tutors, and I think there are so many creative tutors that also need uplifting today. It's not just about the sciences and English and all the core subjects. I think that you know, creative tutors need that recognition as well. So I'm really glad you shared on that, Rachel. Is there anyone else that would like to share their experiences of tutors that they've had? Charlotte?
Well, I just have to carry on the theme of music then, because when I was young, I actually wanted to be a musical theatre actress, and I had a singing teacher. I was rubbish, by the way. And that was what was so amazing, though, because I loved singing. I wasn't very good at it, but I wanted to carry on doing it, even though there was probably no hope in hell I would ever be an adult actor, as is now apparent. But it's that feeling that she gave, and I know obviously she was getting paid, but you didn't feel like it was about the payment. She treated everyone as if they were an Oscar-winning, Tony Award-winning actor, actress, singer. She was incredible. And I used to break down most lessons because I was so rubbish. And I would go, I can't do it. I'm rubbish. I'm useless. And she would just look at me and she'd say, you wombat, and in a fun way. And she would say, let's just try it again. Enjoy it. And it would be about the enjoyment. And she would take that pressure away and stop, and was actually very mindful. And this is what I love about music. You have to absolutely be mindful when you do music, because she stopped me worrying about the next competition and the next audition and the next this and the next that. And she just said, let's try this song again and let's nail it. And she just made me, even though I was never going to win anything or do an awful lot, she made me feel special in that moment and just didn't put pressure on me to be amazing in the long term, just for that moment, performing to her and enjoying it for what it was. So that's what I have to say about that.
That's amazing to hear. And I love how she made you do that in the moment. It wasn't, looking, weeks or months in advance. It was very much concentrated on that moment. And I like how you brought in mindfulness as well, because I think that that can filter into all subjects. There's a pressure sometimes looking forward to an exam or something that's happening in the next few months. A lot of what's going on with the MTP, it's sort of raising levels. So getting a student from A to B and saying they have to meet this, or this is their target grade. And I think when you look at it in that sense, of course we have to have goals for these children, but I like what you said about mindfulness and being in the moment. I think is so important, and having that tutor not project the future onto you, but just letting you concentrate on the moment is absolutely amazing, and that's so positive as well to hear. I will probably have time for one more question or one more feedback about any tutors that you've had that have really fed into your experiences and fed into sort of your life so far, if there's anyone.
Linda, can I say a little something?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah, of course.
Just another one of my funny stories, but this was really nice. And another thing about tutors, how can I put it? We tear down barriers. And as a tutor, we tutor any culture, the needs, additional, everyone's uniqueness and specialness. I was in about 1982 and it was the Brixton riots and we were in school. And I can remember this extremely brave English teacher. Now he wanted to try and get things really real. So he said, I don't know why, strangely, I'll be the policeman and you can be the writers and the books can be the bricks. And it was awful. Everyone was like, not me though, was chucking books at him and he was like, and it was a nightmare. But you know what it was? It stuck in my head so much that I kind of like got a love for English because he was brave. Most predominantly the children were like myself, they were Black British children and he was a British guy. But he actually said, you know what, let's get to this bricks and rights thing. Let's do it in the moment. And I never forgot that. I mean, he just got some books, it wasn't good, but it showed me something and it broke down that race barrier for me. And I that stuck in my head. And we can break down barriers. It doesn't matter what you look like. You know what I'm saying? It's really important what you can or can't do. It's a factor. We're all people. And I think, you know what, it was funny for me, but not for him. But yeah, so I remember him. Mr. Jones, I remember him.
Well, Mr. Jones definitely sounded brave. And I think, do you know what? There's so much going on. And I'm so glad you touched on that, Melanie. Even these days, I think there's still racial tensions. There's still an attainment gap. There's still things that we still need to be doing, especially for students that don't really have the opportunity to have teachers that look like them, or teachers or tutors that look like them. And I think, the world of tutoring is getting more and more diverse as well. So I think definitely having tutors of all races or backgrounds or different diversities is all going to feed into the experience that tutors can provide. And I think it's so important to thank you, Charlotte. It's so important to have these tutors that are, that are present and you can see what they look like, and you can actually, have these children think, okay, this tutor looks like me, or this tutor is from the same background as me, and look at what they're doing now. I think it's such an inspiration to these tutors as well. I'm going to round off there. Thank you so much for coming to the first gratitude circle of the day. And I want to thank Jack and Melanie. Thank you so much for being my guest. I mean, I could chat to you two forever about your experiences, could listen to Melanie's stories forever as well, and Jack's as well. So thank you so much, and happy World Tutors Day to everyone. I hope your day is filled with joy, and absolutely we have to start celebrating tutors going forward, and I'm looking forward to next year already. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you. And Julia has popped in the chat there the worldtutorsday.org link, which you can go to leave a thank you note to your tutor. So if this conversation has sparked anything in your mind about a past tutor or educator that you've had, then go to that link and let them know that you're thinking of them today. Linda, thank you so much for leading that. That was a wonderful discussion, and it got me thinking in terms of gratitude towards teachers that I've had. I haven't thought about many of my teachers like that in a while. Some of them not so positive, some of them very positive, but that's the way it goes. But thank you. And we will be moving on to Lucy Spencer's 10 hours into her 24-hour tutor-thon in just a minute. Thank you very much once again, everyone, and please do stay on.